Well, welcome back to another episode of Parker's Pensées. This is a podcast where we explore thoughts in philosophy, theology, nature, and life. I love thinking about cool stuff, so come think with me. Shout out Patreon, shout out YouTube, everyone who's supporting. You guys are the best. Please keep doing that. Please give me a good review, 5-star review, and a comment at Apple Podcasts. I'm getting better at my little pitch, getting quicker, so that we can get to the good stuff with you guys. Today, I'm really excited. I have another special guest. You guys always hear that. I always say special guest. They're always special. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say. I have really awesome guests. Today, I have with me Cameron Bertuzzi. Many of you will know him from Capturing Christianity. I'm not going to do an intro because I want to talk to him so bad, so I'm just going to bring him right in. Cameron, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Yeah, man, I'm so happy to be here for so many reasons. You don't even know, Parker.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, I've been watching your stuff and I love it. Like, you are my new favorite YouTuber.
Wow, dude.
I don't know how that makes you feel, but
that makes me feel really good.
I know you're probably wanting to talk about me, but I want to talk about, like, dude, your interview style is great. The people that you have on, the topics are amazing. The conversations are like you basically just have conversations with people. And I also feel like since you are currently like you're currently in school, is it for philosophy or is it theology or is it both or what?
I'm working on 2 theology degrees, but I wish I was doing philosophy, so I read all the philosophy at this. Yeah.
Dude, so well, anyways, the point that I'm making is that it's obvious that you know what you're talking about, but you don't do it in a way that's like, I don't know, too I can't think of the term. Just it's not too intellectual, but you can just, I don't know. I love it. I love your channel, and you and I were talking a little about how you needed to create a new one.
Yeah.
Apart from all of your, like, you're really cool. Like, I was going to say turtle, but like frog and what did you call it?
Too.
Like what? Yeah.
Parker's,
okay.
It's like Parker's Swamp, man. It's like this whole new
Parker's
thing.
Swamp. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, dude, people may not know about that, but I got a bunch of awesome videos on this channel that you're watching now, and they have like 2-3 views because I had to move them all over from my other channel because Cameron's like, bro, you can't keep the frogs and the philosophy together. And I was like, he's right. Dang it. Don't be right. Just don't be. I have all these subscribers in this other channel, and they weren't watching my philosophy stuff. I thought I could bring them over. They weren't watching any of my stuff anymore. So you were right, man. Yeah.
Yeah. With YouTube, it's and we'll probably talk about. I think you want to talk about YouTube a little bit later.
Yeah.
But yeah, YouTube just makes a little bit more sense to keep a channel dedicated to kind of like one type of content. You can do a lot of different things with like philosophy. You can do a lot of things with your like aquarium style videos, but you've got to. I mean, those are just so different that it just made a little bit more sense to have two.
Yeah, dude, you're right. I mean, I was mad that you're right, but you are. I gotta confess something to you, dude. So I've been watching your stuff since you probably came out with like your first couple videos, and I'll be like begrudgingly watching them, like, Cameron, dang it. But your stuff was so good that I couldn't help but watch, and I was like, I don't know, I was probably jealous too, but at that time I was really like anti William Lane Craig, and you love him, so I was like, dang, dude.
Yeah, I love him.
And as I've warmed up to Craig, because I've had to read his stuff, but then I read it, I'm like, dang, I don't agree with like Cerberus and the Trinity kind of stuff, but I know what he's doing, and he's really good at what he does, and his breadth of, he's amazing. He's an amazing guy. As I warmed up to him, I was like, hey, wait, Cameron's actually doing some really good stuff, and wait, Cameron's actually turning into like a thinker himself. Wait, dang it. And then so I was like, bro, I need to just have Cameron on and talk. And then as I invited you, you're like, dude, can I help you with your YouTube? And I was like, dang, dude, what a jerk I am that I ever that I was ever begrudging to you. So I just want to confess that, man, that like, you're awesome and I love you. And I got a whole new perspective on you and Craig. So just wanted to let you know that.
I don't really know what to say to that. Thanks.
You're doing such like important, I know people say important work too much, but actually like your channel is really, really important for apologetics. But even more than that, like people will talk about the Grim Reaper paradox on your channel and stuff. And it's like, where else am I going to get that? Now people will, because they saw your channel and they asked those guys, and now the conversation's happening. But your conversations are actually really important for philosophy in general, for philosophical theology, and then for apologetics. So I love it, man. So I just wanted
I
to
appreciate that, man.
acknowledge that even when I was like begrudgingly watching your stuff, I still had to watch it because your channel's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So sorry if that's awkward, man, but I had to get that off my chest.
it's
Um,
all good.
so I wanted to get in. I'm probably going to title this like "Capturing Cameron" or something. I hope no one else has done that. It's kind of cliche, maybe, but I wanted
Nope.
to get into
Haven't
like
done it yet.
oh, that's good then. The background, like, why did this start? I think I know why it started. I mean, I've watched a lot of your videos, but people at home might not know, and maybe I have the story
Right.
wrong. How did it start?
So the YouTube channel,
Yeah.
or
Well, I
just
guess
like,
the endeavor, because it started as a blog, I think, right?
yep. Yep. Started as a blog.
Yeah.
And so I'll start at the kind of beginning. So my brother became an atheist about 8-9 years ago. And I met with him, we talked, and it didn't go well. It was the opposite of a good conversation. So, but after that, I decided, I was like, okay, look, I need to like really learn if there's any good reason to think that Christianity is true, and also like learn some things to know how to respond to him. And but after that point, like I went on my own journey into philosophy and theology and apologetics, and I just started to learn more and more and more. And then I would have more conversations with atheists. So I wound up eventually over at the Reasonable Faith Forums, Dr. William Lane Craig's website. He's got a forum there. And so I had been looking, ever since I came in contact with Dr. Craig's work, I was looking for some place to like discuss apologetics with atheists. And everywhere that I looked, it was like conversations were really bad. They weren't very good. The people were just vitriolic. They didn't know the philosophy, and they didn't seem to take this stuff seriously. And they just weren't very good at doing it. And so I was like, okay, let me try to find a place. And so I eventually came to the Reasonable Faith Forums, and the atheists there were like a breath of fresh air. They were great to talk to. They were formidable. They were intelligent. A lot of them were nice. And it was just like, it was a gold mine for me to like practice out some of apologetics, see if any of these arguments, if they're actually good, test them against these really smart atheists who didn't find them convincing.
Yeah.
So after I did that for a while, I was like, okay, look, because I was like obsessed with it. I was like every single day I was on this forum talking to atheists.
Yeah.
Like not just every day, like up at night, like it would wake me up in the middle of the night, and my wife would be like, get off your phone. And I'd be like in the middle of the night trying to like,
Dude,
write this response to this
my
this
wife's gonna be
atheist.
cracking up hearing this because I was the same exact. Well, he responded again. Just one more.
Yeah.
Just one more.
Yeah, just leave me alone. Just like put the pillow over
It's
your
important.
face. And
It's for the
leave me alone.
gospel. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or really, it's more about your insecurities.
Totally.
But
it really is.
So I, after that point, so I was like, okay, look, I'm super passionate about this now that I've kind of discovered this whole new world of things that I didn't know existed. So I wanted to get more into it. And I decided, okay, look, if I'm going to be spending all of this time writing all of this stuff in response to atheists and like coming up with my own ideas and everything, I was like, it's probably good. Like if I maybe want to write a book or do something in apologetics related, it'd be good to practice my writing in some way. So I decided to start this blog. It was initially a blog, and I, after some like thinking about what am I going to title this thing, I decided to embrace my identity of what I was. I was a photographer, a full-time photographer. So that's where the name came from, Capturing Christianity. And then it started out as a blog, and eventually I was like, it kind of makes sense, like as a photographer, to have a YouTube channel. So I started one, and then I started to post little videos here and there, not really taking it seriously. But then probably 2 years ago, I think it's almost exactly 2 years ago, I did a collaboration with Mike Winger and John McCrae. John McCrae is What Do You Mean? He's got a really popular apologetics YouTube channel. And so I did a collaboration with them, and then from that point on, my YouTube channel just started growing like crazy. And now it's where it's at today, which I think last I checked, it's like 86,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
So it's growing like crazy, but it's just, I guess that's kind of the backstory of why it started and why it's here.
Well, so what year did you start with YouTube? 2015 or?
YouTube 2017.
Okay.
Is when I started my YouTube channel. I started the blog in 2016 of October, and then I created the YouTube channel in I think January of 2017. So just a few months after that. And then the first thing that I hosted actually was a panel discussion between a bunch of different atheists and Christians on the evolutionary argument against naturalism.
Yeah.
I had just listened to a back and forth between Tyler McNabb and Stephen Law on Reformed epistemology. And Stephen Law or Tyler, I was really impressed with him, and I also found out that he lived in Houston, where I live, and I was like, hey, I need to hook up with this guy. And so, anyways, I hosted this dialogue between all of these different people, and I loved that. I was like, hey, look, I could kind of do this regularly, at least once a month. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a time commitment to do set aside a couple hours a month and do these things and kind of be the American version of Unbelievable, which I couldn't get enough of at the time. I was I need more of these discussions. And there were some things I wanted to change. Every time I would listen to an Unbelievable episode, I'd be like, man, I really wish they wouldn't take 15 minutes on introductions and just kind of shooting the breeze and introducing these different people, which is, it's good to do that. But
radio,
what I
right?
wanted,
I
wanted get immediately to the content. I don't care about introductions.
Yeah.
If I like what they're saying, then I'll care about introductions, or then I'll care about who this person is. And I guess that's kind of selfish when I'm saying that out loud. But I wanted something where it was content focused and you didn't have to worry about these breaks in between stuff. And so I was like, hey, this might be a fun thing. And I still do those. I still host discussions between Christians and non-Christians, and that's one of my favorite things to do, actually. So
yeah. Well, dude, I wanted to ask you, I'm glad you went there, because I wanted to ask you, initially I said there's some animosity or whatever from me towards you, which you didn't even know I existed or whatever, but it was because I'm a pre-supper, because I got into that whole thing, and there's this whole online beef and stuff like that. But as I started working on my own thing, that was a while back. I've been loving you for a while here, but I realized I don't want to do what you do. I don't want to host debates like that. And you're a brave man for doing that. I wanted to ask you about your personal psychology. What's going on in Cameron's head when you have these dudes who are giants going back and forth, and sometimes the atheists make way better points than some of the theists that are on. What happens to you? What are you thinking when that happens?
I'm normally thinking, I guess it would depend on the video, but I'm normally thinking there's probably someone else who is better suited to respond to this.
Yeah.
Or I didn't really anticipate how this matchup was going to work out in the end. I mean, I remember having I don't want this to come off the wrong way. There was a guy, or two guys that I hosted a dialogue between, and the philosopher, I basically pitted a philosopher against a really popular atheist, like YouTuber or whatever else. And I was thinking this was a great opportunity to expose some good philosophy to a huge atheist online community and everything. And at one point I was just this was probably not a good idea. They talk different languages. Yeah. It wasn't as good as I was hoping that it would have been. But I don't get in a situation where I'm man, this guy's making all of these points that I personally can't respond to. I've grown pretty comfortable with my own worldview at this point. Yeah. So a lot of these things that come up, I don't get a whole lot of anxiety about them anymore. Whereas when I was first starting out and kind of looking into things for the first time, I would try to work through things, but it doesn't really happen that often anymore. Even if someone is, if a formidable atheist comes on the channel and makes some point, it's not something that's really going to affect me doxastically.
Hey, that's good, dude. That's cool, because you do it, and I think that's a real sign of maturity. And
but I also just love. I mean, this is gonna sound cliche, and a lot of atheists don't think that this is a thing. But I love truth. So if anyone makes a point, and I think about this a lot when it comes to criticism. If someone criticizes your argument, and it's a good criticism, then you've got a great opportunity to grow in knowledge. You can accept something true. You can acknowledge that your argument wasn't as good as you thought it was. And so that's a good thing. Yeah. But on the other hand, if it's a bad criticism and it doesn't apply to your argument, or if it's a bad argument and it's just, in that case, then it still shouldn't bother you, because then you still, it's a bad argument. And so what are you supposed to do with that other than just throw it away? So that's kind of my approach to criticism these days, is to think about it in terms of truth, and that's ultimately for me what it's about. And I know that everybody has bias, including atheists and Christian. Everybody deals with bias. I try to deal with it as best that I can, But that's what I try to keep at the forefront of my mind, is that
Yeah.
like, it's not really about winning a point or making myself look good, or like, it's really about truth. And if in these cases, if the argument is no good, then I want to be able to be brave enough to give it up too, if it's a good point or whatever else. So yeah, that's my general approach these days.
Well, I appreciate that, because you don't jump in and go, yeah, but what, and you're not trying, you can
There are
tell that you're not
definitely
anxious.
times.
Yeah.
There are times where I'm like, man, this guy had a really great opportunity to say this.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But I've just got to be like, okay, look, I'm not in this debate, because at other points I'm like, man, that was good. I don't know how to respond to that.
Right.
And and I don't want to jump in at those points. I only want to jump in when I've got like something to say. So
That's right.
I try to keep that in mind too. It's like, it's not the Cameron Bertuzzi show, which is actually something I love about the ministry, is that it's not the Cameron Bertuzzi show. It's, I know you're going to call this capturing Cameron or whatever, but that's one of the things I love about mine. And I think the same about yours is that you're interviewing these different people who are doing important stuff. And that's what I'm hoping to do is expose the world, or at least a small portion of the world, to some really important work that's being done, and that a lot of people just don't even know exists.
Right. Man, that's the same kind of impetus for me, because I was having these conversations anyways, and I thought, well, other people need to hear this stuff. Or I'd talk to my professor, and he would talk about like nested speech act theory. And it's like, has anyone ever talked about nested speech acts, like a speech act within a speech act? And he's like, I don't know, this might be original. I'm like, well, come on to YouTube, dude. Like, let's talk about that. 4 people are going to read that in a journal, but like, I want other people to know that you're kind of a huge deal, dude. Like, let's go. And sometimes it takes some prodding, but it's a similar thing to you. I didn't understand your capturing Christianity. At first I was like, is he an atheist? I don't understand. Is he capturing? But then I understood once I found out I listened some more, and I was like, that's exactly what we want to do. It's exactly right. Like, they're smart people. Let's put this out there. And,
exactly.
I appreciate that. I wanted to talk about your progress, because I mean, I've seen it. I don't know if I'm sure you've seen it in yourself. Maybe you're too humble to say it or anything, but you've grown as a thinker yourself, just interacting. And I'm sure you've been reading their stuff. You've been thinking through, have you grown theologically as well? Have you moved any positions in your theology since you started this journey here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now I'm like actively looking into Catholicism. And so that's like a big area for me of just personal interest right now. And there's like a whole Catholic community that is like trying to get me converted. So I'm like, I've got a bigger, like a growing shelf up here behind me of just like Catholic books. And my wife calls it Catholic propaganda.
Yeah.
But, so that's something I'm currently looking into. I feel like I've gotten a little bit more solid in some of the things that I believe, but as I've done some of these debates with Matt Fradd, who Fradd he's a Catholic apologist on YouTube, and he's also just become a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I've done debates with him, and every debate that I do with him on some topic that sort of divides Catholics and Protestants, then I'll come down on like some view that I've got about that. And I just try to use like the same kind of stuff that I've learned, the same kind of methods that I see philosophers use. Like when I read Alvin Plantinga for the first time, I was like, this is the way to like think about something. This is like to really take seriously what the other person is arguing, and then like break it down on a level that they hadn't thought of themselves, and then like show systematically why their arguments fail. Stuff like I try to bring that into the stuff that I do and debates that I do myself, which I'm currently in a debate, as you probably know, with Stephen Woodford, atheist YouTuber. So I try to incorporate a lot of this into like my own thinking, but with theologically, I would say those are the kinds of things that I'm kind of thinking through right now. There was one thing that I never anticipated believing or holding, which was annihilationism. And I don't say that I'm like a huge annihilationist, but I do lean toward that being the correct view of what the Bible teaches about the end times, about hell.
Yeah.
And so I just did not anticipate that happening. I initially started to defend the view because I was in some debate with an atheist, and they were arguing against the truth of Christianity by assuming the traditional view. And I was like, no, look, there's other defensible views. And then as I like started to look in, okay, how defensible is this?
Yeah.
I eventually became convinced that this is the right view.
Hmm.
And I'm not, again, it's more tentative with
Yeah.
annihilationism, but yeah, that's a view, I suppose, if I were to give an example, that's a view that I just did not anticipate holding theologically, but now I find myself pretty much drawn to.
Yeah. Well, so I think I heard this from your conversation with your brother. Did you guys grow up in a charismatic or was it Pentecostal? I know it's similar, but in a
Charismatic,
charismatic church. Okay.
very charismatic, yeah.
Has that changed? Are you still pretty charismatic yourself, or?
No, I wouldn't say I'm very charismatic. We're actually in between churches right now, so we're trying to find another church. And the whole Catholic thing has me confused too. I'm like, do I even need to be looking for a new church? Or like, so I'm just theologically, I'm very, 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 very confused right now. So I don't, but I wouldn't say that I lean towards like the charismatic type of stuff that I like. So I've got an episode. I think it's on the YouTube channel. It could have been on the podcast. It for sure is on the YouTube channel about tongues and like how a lot of people have misinterpreted what tongues is. And that's like a big thing in charismatic circles,
Right.
talking in tongues.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've kind of gone away from that view. And yeah, I actually think that the model that I like is, have you heard of Michael Heiser? Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of Michael Heiser.
Yeah, my brother had him on his podcast. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you go. Heiser has like he's got a podcast called The Naked Bible, and I really like how they just basically he approaches everything from like a I want to say a non-denominational standpoint. It's just like he's not assuming he's not assuming Catholicism, he's not assuming Protestantism. He's just like looking what does the Bible actually teach about this particular subject.
Yeah.
And so that's I guess kind of the approach that's more the like idealized approach of what I would like to be able to do if I had time to just like sit down and think through everything that I believe about theology. But yeah, I would say that's a really long way of just answering that. Yeah, I don't really know, but I don't lean toward. I'm not charismatic anymore.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's cool, man. It's really these are all the questions I have when I watch your stuff, and I'm like, I wonder where he's at. Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's probably underwhelming. I mean, theologically, like I'm not as solid as I am, at least on some philosophy. So
yeah. Well, dude, it's kind of a thing, right? It's kind of like that's kind of become a split where it's like there's like the apologists and there's like the theologians. And sometimes the theologians will say, well, the Bible says this, and this is how you reach culture. And the apologists are like, well, I'm doing this every single day. I think I know how to reach culture pretty well. And there's like this kind of beef that happens. And that's part of one of my goals is I just want to bring people together and talk and like, let's figure some stuff out. Yeah. Apologists need to get better at theology, and theologians need to get better at philosophy and culture, and philosophers need to get better at explaining their stuff in fun ways so people can understand and be interested. And I don't have all the answers at all, but I'm just trying to grasp at it and pull everyone together here. So
yeah, I think we're in a really unique situation with YouTube and the sort of information age that we're in right now. It's like there's people are interested. They want to hear. And all of this is very new. It's like what I'm doing now wouldn't have been possible, just 20, 30 years ago. Right. So I think that we've got a very unique opportunity to really play around with a lot of these really cool ideas. I mean, play around in the sense of like just pull someone on and have them talk, and it can have a huge influence. I just did not anticipate this either. I interviewed a Catholic priest, an exorcist, and that's like the biggest.
It's gigantic.
The biggest. It's ridiculous. It's like almost at 700,000 views right now. I had no idea that was going to be, but it's just like anything can take off, and I think it's worth like. I mean, if this is something you're passionate about, you think it's about getting information out there and truth and all of these valuable things, then like why not?
Right, bro. That's funny because I did see that and I was like, man, that's his biggest video. That's crazy. One of my brother's biggest videos is that's a Think Institute for anyone. I never mentioned that on the podcast. My brother has one as well, and his biggest one is with Michael Heiser, and it's on demons. And my brother's like, dude, YouTube loves demons. They love about them. They just eat it up. And they love frogs, apparently. Like, they love my stupid frog video. That's my legacy to the world, which is really sad. But maybe this podcast will do it. That'd be huge.
Well, it's a little bit more important than frogs eating mice.
That's right. That's right. Well, dude, I wanted, so has the trajectory of capturing Christianity like changed? In my head, it started out because you wanted to argue with your brother, not argue. You wanted to convince your brother. You wanted to bring back to the faith, really noble thing. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe that was just my conception of capturing Christianity. But first of all, I guess, was that your conception? And whatever your first goal was, has it changed at all since you've been in this process?
Yeah, so it was not a point of doing it originally. So
Okay.
I initially, my point of doing, like, I would try to talk to my brother about apologetics all the time. Like any opportunity that I could find a place in a conversation, if I had like 2 seconds of downtime with him, I would try to like talk to him about some argument or talk to him about something apologetics related. Soon I found out very quickly that was like not the way to go about things. And it was also like, as I reflected on it more, I was like, this is not the way to like have a relationship with somebody. And it's like, because it was like I was trying to get something out of him every time.
Right.
So it wasn't really like a love relationship at all. It was me just trying to get something from him, or prove something to myself, or, that's the kind of situation that I was in. So eventually I discovered that that's not how I should do things. And I think I discovered that probably a couple years before I started capturing Christianity. So capturing Christianity was mainly about just like kind of developing myself and bettering myself as either a writer or speaker. Or I had actually attended a conference probably a couple years, maybe 1 year before I started capturing Christianity. It was an apologetics conference, and I had already been like involved in apologetics in terms of like the forum that I was on, and then watching other people, and William Lane Craig and all these other people on YouTube doing these debates. So I was very aware of apologetics. But when I went to my first conference, I was like, man, that is what I want to do with my life, like that right there. And so after, I think probably a few months after that, I started the blog, and I was like, okay, it's probably time to get serious about this. Because I was just so obsessed with it. Like photography, I love photography. I like, even now, like I took some pictures the other day as I went out and visited with Matt Fradd again, and I took some pictures of like his friends, and I love that. I really, really enjoy photography. But when I was like doing photography, the thing I was thinking about was apologetics.
Right.
It was all philosophy and all of that. And so I was like, okay, look, this is probably what I need to like get serious about and maybe turn into a career. And so that's kind of like why I started capturing Christianity. The thing that I would say, to answer your second question, the thing that I would say has changed from the beginning is that it started out as a blog, and I never intended it to be like a YouTube channel or like that to be the main thing. Yeah. But that's for sure what it's turned into. Like, I don't write anymore. I don't try to put it well, I guess I do write, but I write like scripts for videos. Yeah. So, but that's like the focus now is all YouTube and creating video content. And the reason for that switch is because I was like, my website was getting, at the time, and I think this was probably like maybe a year into having the ministry of the website, and my website was getting like, I'm trying to remember the actual numbers, but I think it was around 5,000 to 6,000 views a month. Okay. And I was like, this is pretty good. Like that's for apologetics, for an apologetics website that's just like blogs about random stuff. Like, that's pretty good to me. Yeah. And eventually I was like, but on YouTube, they're getting like thousands, hundreds of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views. And, and you have the opportunity to get paid to do it. And I was like, okay, this just makes a little bit more sense. And my background's in photography and in video, and so I know all the lighting. I know how to do it just made so much sense. No brainer to do that. So that's how it transitioned from like more of a blog type thing to what it is now, where the focus is now just on creating videos, and that's what I spend all of my time doing now. Yeah.
Well, so with the videos, man, I think I most knew you from hosting debates, because it was like, I can't miss this one. I can't, like, the people he has talking and the conversation it's on is amazing. I have to watch this. Is the focus, is it still on that? Because you mentioned how you're influenced by Premiere, or
Unbelievable
on Premiere Christian Radio.
Premiere podcast.
That's the best part of the podcast. I love that. Is it still like focused on, let's get these debates together, or has it broadened out? How has that changed?
I would say it's about the majority of my content that I produce is more focused on interviews. So I try to set up like a one-on-one with another philosopher or sometimes theologian. My stuff is more toward philosophy and atheism, because that's kind of like what I'm most interested in,
Right.
just naturally. And I think partly because of my, experience with my brother and everything. So but right now I would say the majority of the things that I produce are interviews on some topic. Today I actually did a marathon episode where I was paired with Andrew Loke. And Andrew Loke, if you don't know, he's a philosopher out in Hong Kong. One of the most like brilliant Christian philosophers to come on the scene recently. He's really, really cool.
Yeah.
There's a ton of things to love about him. But he and I just did a marathon stream where he was responding to an atheist who had responded to something that he and I had produced together. And that's the kind of thing that I do now, is like an interview, like a kind of one-on-one situation.
Yeah.
And I try to shoot for doing like a dialogue or debate 1 to 2 times a month.
Okay.
So as often as those sort of come about organically, or as I think about doing something, then I'll try to put one of those together. But those are not the main focus. The main focus is these interviews, which I do at least 2 times a week. I try to put out a video twice a week. And that to me is already like too much content for a lot of people, because my videos average out at about an hour, or like a little bit more than an hour. And I like, people have already told me like that's just too much content, which is what's weird is that today in the marathon stream, which was 3.5 hours, by the way, there were people saying like, I love this marathon. I want it to go an hour longer. And I was just like, I don't understand. Like,
Dude, I don't get it either, man. I just don't get it, because I put out 3 a week,
like,
and it's too much.
Yeah.
I know it's too much. It's too much, but I'm like, eventually you'll watch them, I think, probably. But also like Joe Rogan.
Or they'll just watch the ones that are interested in.
Right. And that's what a lot of people have said. But, Rogan does 3-hour ones, and I'm no Joe Rogan. I get it, dude. But we're talking about really interesting stuff. So like, you should, if you like Joe Rogan, you should like this kind of stuff, So I'm still wrestling with that. And you've been a huge help in all of this anyway. So that's been...
and I plan to do more too, by the way. You and I will talk about that afterwards.
You're the man. I love that. Cameraman, so talking about apologetics, and you've obviously studied a lot. You were studying years before you even started this thing. Do you have a set like methodology that you're comfortable with, or are you more eclectic and saying whatever works, I'm following the truth, or this one works too, or you say like, this is kind of the method that I like, and this one fits what I think the truth is? Does that make sense?
No, I'm not really sure what you're getting at. Okay. What do you mean by method? Are you like asking how I think through things, or what?
No, well, some dudes, when I was into apologetics, I kind of moved on from apologetics to philosophy and theology, because I realized that I would get my lunch just eaten, because the guys that I admired were all philosophers and theologians, and I didn't want to get destroyed. So I was like, I need to know my theology and my philosophy. But when I was super, super into apologetics, just as apologetics, it was like, I am a presuppositionalist, or I'm a Clarkian presuppositionalist, or I'm a classical, or I'm an evidentialist, or I'm reformed epistemologist, and so there's these little camps that happen.
Okay.
And so did you ever get caught up in any of that, or do you find yourself fitting more firmly in one camp than the other?
Yeah. So I'm like, I guess I fall more in the classical approach, but I'm like a combination of evidentialist and reformed epistemologist.
Okay.
So I don't think that there's any conflict between the two.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's
what convinced me that was actually a paper by, I can never remember the other guy that co-wrote it with him, but Trent Doherty and another guy. Trent Doherty was a big evidentialist, and he was actually against reformed epistemology for a while, but he and another guy, it may have been Chris Tweed, they argued in a paper that evidentialism is fully compatible with reformed epistemology, and that's what ultimately convinced me that the two make a lot of sense together.
Yeah.
And so that's the camp that I fall into, though.
Okay. Which is, on first glance, it's hilarious. It's like, well, that doesn't seem, because evidentialism and reformed epistemology seem like they're enemies, right? And and then
get into that if you want.
Yeah, we could get into some of that. Well, let's go there. So I wanted to talk about reformed epistemology, but arguments for God's existence, and ones that you think have some good foundation, ones that you think are good arguments. And also, man, did you know about them beforehand? Like, was there one that you learned through this process? You're like, dang, that's really good, I'm going to use that.
Yes. So there's one argument that I really, really like, and a lot of my listeners will know that I like it a lot, and that is the contingency argument.
Mhm.
And the version of it that I like the most is from a guy named Josh Rasmussen,
Yeah.
who I've had on my channel a bunch. He's amazing, and his version of the argument was really what like convinced me that God's existence is very, very, very probable.
Mm.
And it's even to the point, like it's to the point where a lot of atheists will accept like half of the argument, but then they'll get off at the second half.
Yeah.
And that to me is super. And that actually, in talking with another philosopher, his name is Rob Coons, that marks a specific like shift in the dialectic. So before it was that atheists wouldn't even accept the first half of the argument. Like they wouldn't accept, and by half of the argument, I mean like the existence of a necessary being. That's what the contingency argument gets you to. So that's, or that the first stage of the contingency argument gets you to a being that has to exist, foundation of everything, basically.
Yeah.
But it's necessary, it has to exist. A lot of atheists wouldn't even accept that. Like they wouldn't go that far. But now atheists like Graham Oppy and some others, they're accepting that there's this, the first stage of the argument, like that's, I'm happy to go along with that. But then they'll say, well, why do you have to, why does this necessary foundation have to be God or have the traditional theistic attributes? So that's where nowadays they're starting to more commonly jump off. But so that and I think that just speaks to the strength of the argument. The argument is so powerful. It's amazing. I love it. And that's where I sit. And that was through my process of apologetics and philosophy that led me to that argument. Initially, it led me to the work of Alexander Proust, and eventually I found the work of Josh Rasmussen. And Josh and I are now friends at this point. He and I talk. Yeah. He's on our board. He's amazing.
He's the man.
So much.
Yeah, and that I don't know. I don't know if you've read it or not, but I think their book's called Necessary Existence with Rasmussen and Proust. It's just a amazing book, but then you find other stuff
so difficult to read.
Yeah, man, I had to like get into some modal logic stuff, and I was like, I have to anyways because you got to read Planning and all that stuff. But it's really, I love it, and it goes really well with like James Anderson type presuppositionalism, and you get into and I love it. And
which Josh, I'm having him on the show, by the way.
I know it. I know. I'm stoked for that because James is the man. I think that guy is top notch. He's so come back again. Yeah. But Josh is like, there was like that Twitter war between, on the apologetics March Madness thing. And it was Josh versus like Cy 10 Broken Kate. But Josh, I just saw a recent thing and he's like, yeah, I'm not a presuppositionalist myself, but I'm friendly to them. And because he's a thinker and he wants to think through truth. I really, really admire that guy because you see the breadth of his work as well. And you're like, how are you doing necessary existence stuff and then doing this work over here? It's just because he's like, I'm going to go where the thread leads me. I love that. That guy's awesome.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now he's like focused on arguments from consciousness. So he's currently writing a book on that.
And it makes no sense to me. Yeah. It's amazing that he can do that.
Well, he thinks that nowadays he's more convinced that the argument from consciousness is more powerful than the argument from contingency.
Yes, I think he's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he may be, and he may convince me. Yeah. But right now, just like I can't find a way out of the contingency argument.
Yeah. Well, dude, so I've told you this online or on Facebook, whatever, Messenger, but I think there's a way to do both. And I'm a stupid grad student, so I probably am not going to do it. But I think there's an argument from contingency in the philosophy of mind that I wrote a paper on, but I'm looking to work on it. I'm pretty stoked. It could be huge. It could be really, really stupid and I could fall right on my face, but those two are so interesting to me. And I didn't really like any kind of contingency arguments, any kind of Kalam stuff or cosmological arguments until I started listening to your stuff. And I was like, dude, I don't even really know how to explain it. So why don't I just listen to it before I think it's dumb and I don't even know what it is? And then the contingency stuff, it's good. It's really good. You had a funny little post, but it was actually a good point about bananas and the existence of God. Remember this one? Yeah. It's like Ray Comfort. Ray Comfort, for those who don't know,
oh gosh,
he had this banana, and it was an apologetic from banana. And if it was true, if it worked out, it was a decent apologetic. He was talking about the grooves in the hand and how it's shaped. And then atheists got a hold of it, made it all phallic and stuff. But it turns out that bananas have been genetically modified by us, probably for that reason. So it turned out to be kind of a silly argument. But then, do you remember what you said about the contingency in bananas?
it was something like the real banana argument or something along those lines. But basically, it just pointed to the fact that bananas are contingent,
Yeah.
which just means that like you can do that with anything. It doesn't have
Yes.
to be bananas. It can be basically anything that you look out at in the world that you experience. This desk, this computer, this camera, these lights, everything that we encounter on like a daily basis is contingent. So like bananas work the same way.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of like playing on the fact that like you can still make a good argument for God's existence
Yes.
from bananas, and you don't have to be Ray Comfort. You don't have to be, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, it's the difference between like a teleological argument and a contingency argument, which is, it was just hilarious, but it's a really good point actually too. Would you say that a necessary being is a precondition for bananas? Because there's bananas, there must be a necessary being.
I would say once you combine it with the contingency argument, yes.
Yes,
like once
dude.
you yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Contingency points to a necessary being. So
Yeah.
So some if you want to generalize, then yeah.
Yeah, I do. I love that. I love that. So that's the kind of work that needs to be done in high level presuppositional arguments, to fleshing them out. And you're going to have some contingency stuff. That's okay. You know, like that's how it works out. But you want to say everything presupposes God, and you go, well, how? Well, this banana right here, it's contingent. And then you lead them down the path, and you're showing how a necessary being is necessary if I'm holding this banana right now. And I love it. So people can quibble with that, but I think that,
well,
yeah.
Another similarity between you and I, because you're still a presuppositionalist, right?
I am, yeah.
I didn't hear you. Yeah, I didn't know if you were saying that you had like moved away from that view or whatever.
No,
at the beginning
certain
of this.
forms of the view. Yeah, certain forms of the view.
Yeah. You've gotten a little bit more sophisticated or whatever else.
Maybe, yeah.
But so one way that I accept a kind of transcendental argument.
Whoa.
Yeah. And that the argument is about knowledge. So I think that God is, if you want to call it a precondition for knowledge, because I lean toward proper functionalism, and I don't think proper functionalism can really be had on atheism. So that's the kind of argument that I would think is a pretty good argument. So like knowledge requires proper function requires God, and so knowledge requires God, basically.
I love it.
Like
I think that's great. Did you get that from Craig? Because
I got it from no, I got it from Planninga, and Tyler McNabb kind of helped me think through that. I think, but I had already like seen the bones of that argument in Planninga, and I was like, look, because he just didn't take it a step further to just argue, okay, we have an item of knowledge,
right.
And if you have that premise, then you get the conclusion that God exists from his arguments, or from his theory of warrant. If it's like, if your theory of warrant is correct, then all you've got to add to that is that you have some item of knowledge, and then you like immediately pull God's existence out of it.
Yeah.
And it also functions as a kind of like transcendental argument too.
Yeah.
So like kind of, Reformed epistemologists don't have to like be don't have to fight presuppositionalists.
Yeah, man.
And at least with respect to that, to knowledge.
Right. You can fight other stuff for sure. But so Craig talks about that and uses that exact language in the 5 Views apologetics book. And he says he uses it to slight Van Til, which is whatever. It's fine. You can take pokes. And he says, Planninga is the true one, the true transcendental argument here. It makes sense that McNabb would do that because he was a presupper before Reformed epistemology, though, as James Anderson shows, like the two can go together really nicely.
Yeah.
Which I'm excited about because I love Reformed epistemologists because they do take it seriously. They take transcendental arguments in general seriously. And some of the more evidential folks are like, get out of here with that stuff. And so I have found more friends in Reformed epistemology.
I'm really looking forward to interviewing James Anderson too, because I think his argument has a lot going for it too. Arguing from God, or arguing to God from logic. I think that there's. I mean, I hate mentioning him. Did you watch his debate with T Jump?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really
I was very, very impressed with James though. Like he was just
he knows his philosophy
patient.
very well. Yeah. And he's patient. Yeah.
He's patient, and it wasn't
gotcha stuff either, right? It was like, well, dude, if you believe this, then you're committed to thinking that sentences, and it's just going back and forth because he knows it so well. He wasn't intimidated, but he's also like, I'm going to try to help you with your position. What do you actually believe here?
Mm-hmm.
It's a
And
little frustrating.
what are you
But yeah.
committing yourself to? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What I noticed about him is that he's like, he can track a dialectic really, really well.
Mhm.
And I'm like, it depends on the day, I guess, but most of the time I'm just really bad at that. Like once you start to get into the weeds, there's like too many different things going all over the place. But someone like James can see like, okay, this is going this way, this is going this way, this is going this way. So let's start here and we'll come back to these other things. And like, he can have all of that in his mind, and I just can't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's difficult for me to really track a dialectic like that. And someone like T Jump, like he's really good at getting you off of that, like getting you off your game and chasing all of these different rabbit trails. And so it's like, unless you're really good at being able to track a dialectic, then you're gonna get tripped up.
Yeah.
So I just think, that's like a superpower to me.
Yeah. It
Only a few people have that.
Well, I wrote this down because I wanted to mention it, but one of my friends is a PhD philosopher. He's studying to be a philosopher. And he watched one of your debates. I don't want to say who because I don't want to embarrass anybody or anything, but he was like, Cameron was following better than the Christian apologist or the Christian philosopher who was on. He just was not getting this atheist point at all, but Cameron was getting it. So I wrote a note to mention that, like, at least one philosopher thinks that you're pretty good. And on a particular episode, I can tell you off air or whatever, but he was like, dude, Cameron was doing a better job. He should have just spoke up. He should have just been the one debating. So I hope that you received that well. Yeah.
Yeah, I know my limitations because I interact with like the smartest people alive, I feel like.
Yeah.
So
true.
I'm like, that's one of the things that I love about what I do is that I get to see all of these people's work. And so I feel like I'm pretty well grounded in like what my role is in the kingdom of God and also like in relation to other people. And it's really easy to like get this kind of competitive attitude. I feel like that's just really normal. Is to like immediately compare yourself to like, okay, what's your intellect level compared to this other person's intellect level?
Right.
And if you don't like keep that in the forefront of your mind or like try to avoid that kind of thing, that competitive spirit or whatever, then it can, I think that's just feeds into pride and stuff. So I try to like stay away from that and just like acknowledge that we all have, this is one of the things that I've kind of noticed about apologetics and philosophy that is going to be like the future. The future to me is like an army of specialists, and everyone has their thing that they're amazing at.
Yeah.
And for me and my channel, I think that I try to present stuff in a unique way that's very like accessible to people and they can consume it, but it's not at a basic level. It's like a little bit more intermediate. And so there's all of these different things that people do. Whereas like I think of William Lane Craig as like a jack of all trades. He can basically like talk about almost any different subject, metaphysics or history or whatever else. And it's just like, he just has such a commanding knowledge of all of these different things. But I think the future of apologetics and philosophy is just going to be like an army of specialists where all of these people have these specific things they're just incredible at. And so we can highlight all of them, not necessarily all at once, but in little different ways. And it's just going to feed into like the overall project of exposing the world to the amazingness of analytic Christian philosophy. And so that's my goal. And that's what I see as kind of the future of where everything's going. I don't know if that seems like a rant, but
dude, rants are good. I love rants. My audience loves rants. It's gold. I think what you said about Craig is true too, man. Like even though I disagree with him on so much, even to disagree with him,
and it's so good. Like it's very healthy to like disagree.
Yeah.
If you can find a place where you disagree with someone like Craig, to me, and it's not just like a superficial level disagreement, right? If you can like really find a hearty disagreement where you understand his view, that to me is very, very healthy.
Yeah.
That kind of disagreement. And that I saw that with, I feel like I'm cutting you off a lot, but
dude, cut me off.
I just want to make this point about William Lane Craig because I'm such a fanboy.
Yeah.
He so his did you watch his debate or dialogue with Alex O'Connor?
No,
Cosmic
I didn't.
Skeptic?
I don't watch Alex O'Connor that much, and he freaks me out a little bit, to be honest.
he's my favorite
super
atheist.
sharp.
Like he's by far my favorite atheist.
How old is he?
22. I don't know, 21, 22.
That he's so smart and he's that young. It gets to me. I want to. I've listened to some of his stuff, but He's sharp. Yeah.
Dude, okay. Well, you need to watch his dialogue with Craig. And so he disagreed with Craig, but he at least did like the work of understanding what his view was.
Yeah.
And then had a substantive disagreement. And then at the end, Dr. Craig just like kind of, did what he does. And he was like, well, look, this view kind of did what James Anderson does. He's like, look, this view commits you to this.
Yeah.
And that's a bite, that's a bullet that you've got to bite. And if you want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But don't think that like anyone else has to do that with you.
Right.
But it's also just important to point out, like, what are the commitments that your view is committing you to? And is that something that you actually want to do? Like if you want to be an atheist, you've got to accept all of these other different things that you didn't know that you needed to accept in order to be an atheist.
Yeah.
But some of these things like mereological nihilism, which is the view that Alex was giving in his talk with him. It's like, if you want to deny that this chair exists, you can do that. I don't need to, but you're welcome. Right. Hey, you can do it. Do you,
Yeah. But say it. Yeah. Say it in this mic. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great, man. And I will listen to that one. It reminded me, actually, I think the best thing, I don't know, one of the best things you've done was introduce Craig's argument from math, the unreasonable. Yeah. It's amazing, and that's next, dude. That's the next thing. The math arguments are bomb. They're super, super good, and I'm super excited for those.
See, I don't know about those. They just confuse the heck out of me. I still don't understand.
The more conceptual, the better for me. I love it. I want to get out. I want to get abstract.
The contingency argument is like everything to me, because the concepts are relatively, it's some new terminology you got to use or learn, but that to me is just like the straight shot to God's existence. The math argument is so conceptually difficult to. And maybe that's just a personal thing. It probably is.
Right. And that's the thing. That's what you mentioned earlier about everyone's going to be like a specialist. I froze, but you there?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I saw the timer was still going. Okay.
Yeah. So, God made us with different proclivities, right? So some people like more abstract, and that's cool. But the math one's good because do you know the Weinstein brothers?
Well, it makes sense because you're a presuppositionalist and math is necessary.
Bro, that's right. Let's go.
There it is.
do you know like the Weinstein brothers, Eric and Brett Weinstein?
No.
They're kind of
I feel like it should ring a bell.
Intellectual dark web type folks. But Eric Weinstein is really big in like the.
I do know him. He commented on my stuff a while back.
Oh wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
And he
was on my Facebook page, and he was like commenting some little things, and I was like, I don't know. He just struck me the wrong way.
Yeah, he can do that for sure. But he's a non-religious Jew, and he's a mathematician, and he's got a huge following. And it's like, dude, I want Craig to talk with him so desperately bad because he's a mathematician. And I want that kind of thing happening because he's got a huge reach. He's like a secular William Lane Craig, and he's got his audience. He's got his people, right? And like when Craig talked with Peterson, that's when my mind changed on him, where I was like, yes, that's what theologians and philosophers should have been doing this whole time. Why didn't this happen more? So that just changed my perspective. And then when he was on Premiere, what is it? Unbelievable with what's his name? Roger Penrose.
Dude, you're so bad with names.
Yeah, I'm my wife knows that. Yeah. With Roger Penrose.
I'm bad too.
I only say names don't say anything. I could know your whole story, but your name, like Cameron, doesn't describe you at all. I could look at you and you don't look like a Cameron, But Craig turned into a presuppositionalist when he was talking with Penrose. And I was like, he's a conceptualist, where Craig is notoriously a deflationary theorist. And I was like, Craig, like, what are you talking about, bro? That's like Greg Welty. That's James Anderson. I was so excited for it, but I'm hoping that the math argument brings him towards full conceptual realism, which would be dope. So we'll see. We'll see, man. But it's going to happen on your channel, and I'm going to watch it. I'm going to share it, and it's going to be awesome.
with that guy, Eric, or whatever his name is that his name? Eric Steinberg?
Eric Weinstein, dude. If you can set that one up, that would be insane. Yeah.
Okay. I'll send me a message about it. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. As we finish out here, I know you got stuff going on. I wanted to get your thoughts on further study, you said you know your place in the kingdom. Does that mean, like, do you want to be a philosopher? Do you want to go into philosophy, or are you cool where you're at? I mean, you're doing
Totally
philosophy
cool where
stuff,
I'm
right?
at.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a complete autodidact. I learned everything I know just by reading books and interacting with people. Which, in talks with another philosopher friend of mine, Andrew Moon, he's like, some of the best. Like, you can learn a whole lot of philosophy just by talking philosophy with people.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've done that with my channel. So like, I don't read as much as I used to nowadays, but since I talk to so many people about this stuff, that's kind of the way that I'm consuming this information and learning it right now.
Yeah.
So, what was your question?
Well, it was just about furthering, like further study, like if you wanted to go on
Okay.
and get a formal degree, even though, I mean, you're doing all the work of that
Oh,
right now, but
yeah. I've thought about that on several different occasions,
Mhm.
and every time I come back to like, I don't. It's not something that's necessary for what I
Yeah.
do, you know.
Right.
And also one of the benefits of not having a degree is that it kind of encourages people to just like do apologetics on your own,
So
even
true.
if you're not.
So
You
true.
know, my background's in photography,
Yeah.
yet I can still read a book. You know, I can still read God, Freedom, and Evil by
Yeah.
Alvin Plantinga, and still like put the effort and work into understanding what he's arguing,
Yeah.
and get a whole lot out of it. And I don't have to have a degree in this stuff
Right.
in order to engage at this level. So, and I want to encourage other people to do the same thing. So there's benefits to not having a degree, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've gone back and forth, but I just plan on kind of doing what I'm doing in terms of like further study and everything. So I'll just read on my own and consume what I can and do it that way.
I think that's huge, and I think that is encouraging. That was one thing that made me pretty sad about coming to seminary. Was before people, I would read all the time. I had all these books anyways, and I was reading. I was an autodidact, which is a great word. But people would say, "Oh, are you in seminary?" And I'd be like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, why are you reading?" I'm like, "Because I'm a Christian, and I like doing that." And they would be challenged by that. And now, why do you have all these books? Well, I'm in. I like to read, right? Are you in seminary? Yeah. And it's like, oh, that makes sense. And it's give you. Uh, did you catch any of that?
Yeah, I heard everything, but your
Man, we
video
cut out
froze.
again. Okay, okay, okay. Sorry. I that was
Yeah,
something
no
I
worries.
was sad about. That now it makes sense for me to study. But for you, man, like you don't have that degree. Doesn't make sense. You just like doing it.
Yeah,
Did,
yeah.
I'm sorry, man. It must be my Wi-Fi.
It's all good. It's all good. I was having some connection stuff earlier, so I don't. It could be me. I have no idea.
Okay.
We just moved to a new house, and so I think it is actually you. But
Yeah. So, dang it. Okay. Well, we're almost done here, anyways, man. I just can you hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you, but the video is kind of going in and out.
All right. I see you moving.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Okay. Well, I want to. Okay, I wanted to end on actually seeing you and stuff, but I think I see you now. Maybe, um, dude. I wanted to say, I appreciate what you're doing for so many reasons, but thanks for doing it, man. Thanks for you've been paving the way for us, and I know that you had some help from other dudes, but your channel is different. Your channel is different than the other guys who have helped you, and it's really encouraging to see, but it's also just really fun. I really just I have some downtime. I'm gonna go check something out. I'm gonna go check Cameron's thing because I know he's got good conversations. So while I'm getting a workout in, I'm talking about contingency. I'm thinking about it, and it's awesome, man. It's really good content, and I appreciate it. It's huge.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes me feel really good. And I always don't know what to say in those types of situations, but just thanks. I'm glad that you get something out of it. I mean, I'm doing it because I'm doing it because I love it and I think it's
Yeah,
important work. You know, I think it's important to like get this stuff out of here because I
yeah,
think that if my brother had been in contact with this kind of stuff
yeah,
before he had started going down the route that he did, then he may not be an atheist right now. So I just see a whole lot of value in it, and yeah, so
yeah.
it's just great to hear that it's helping you and that you're getting a lot out of it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so sorry that's so glitchy. But
It's all good.
Cameron, people know who you are, but if they don't and they're watching this, like where's the best place to find your stuff?
I would say just go to the YouTube channel because they're watching this more than likely on YouTube. Or if you're listening to it on a podcast, then just go open your YouTube app and type in Capturing Christianity, and it'll be the first thing that pops up. And just you can subscribe. You can just check out all the videos that we've got in our backlog. And yeah, I mean, you can search by most popular if you want to, but I definitely wouldn't necessarily suggest that. I would just start looking through the different topics and find something that interests you. And I think that more than likely you'll get a whole lot out of it. It's probably going to challenge you in a lot of different ways. Actually, that's a good question. Who is your audience, Parker?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I think you said who is my artist. It broke out, but
who is your audience?
Did you ask me who my artist is?
No, who is your audience?
Audience. I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm not
That's
sure.
something we'll talk about.
I know that you're supposed to know that, but I have people that, yeah. Well, I have people that I like disciple. I work for Athletes in Action Ministry rep in here. And so I'll have guys that are in college, over here at Northwestern, all the way up to seminary professors and philosophers. And some of my best listeners are guys that I've had on the show. They're like my biggest cheerleaders, and it's amazing. But
so I think that your audience is probably your audience and my audience are probably a lot very, very similar. So like you target not just like beginners, but you probably target more people who are interested in theology and philosophy as opposed to necessarily just apologetics. So which apologetics dips into all these different categories anyway. So it may be a meaningless distinction there. But so I think that we share a lot of the same audience. Yeah. And the point that I was making is that it's going to regardless of where you're at, if you're a beginner or if you're intermediate, a lot of the videos that you'll watch on my channel will challenge you. And I think that you're probably accustomed to that watching the videos that you are on Parker's channel. You're going to be challenged, but it's going to be worth it. And yeah, I mean, I can't get enough of this. I like dream about it. So yeah. Yeah. But thanks again for having me on, Parker. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so sorry about this Wi-Fi is being terrible right now, but hopefully you can hear me. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man. I hope this is like the first of many. I would love to have you back on to talk all sorts of stuff. It's been awesome talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. And
all right,
I'm looking forward to
So this has been Parker's Pensées. Lord willing, there we go. Yes, awesome. All right. Sorry for the listeners. I'm going to work on that Wi-Fi as well. This has been Parker's Pensées, and as always, all glory to God.